Oh, there's the open road, begging for a top speed run. I'm not afraid to ride electric bikes really, really fast. I'm not afraid to ride electric trikes on 3 wheels really, really fast, or even ride a trike on 3 wheels, actually on 2 wheels. I'm not afraid to ride a motorcycle really fast. I am not afraid to fly an airplane, but I am terrified of this. I don't know what sort of numbers we're gonna see on the dyno for this Galop T88 Plus scooter. All I know is that they rate these motors at well over 2,000 watts each. There's one on each wheel. That terrifies me. Not just the fact that it's rated for that power, because I've seen other things rated for this kind of power. They don't really go that fast, or they don't really have that much power. But some of the reviews, people are saying they've gone over 50 miles an hour on this stand-up scooter. Some of the reviews say they've gone over 60 miles an hour on this scooter. Now, I don't trust all reviews. If people are saying 50 to 60 miles an hour, that means this thing is ridiculously fast, faster than I really want to go on a scooter, but I have to do it so we know what it does. So I'm gonna start with the easy part, a dyno run, see how much power this thing puts down, see if the speedometer is accurate. That's gonna be important for later. And then I guess I'm gonna actually take it on the road. Now, I do not have a way to measure the power of both wheels simultaneously. That would be the ideal situation to see how much power and torque this thing puts down. Thankfully, this does have a couple of buttons up here on the handlebars. There's an Eco Turbo mode, which we could test out and see what the Eco modes do. There is also a mode button of 1, 2, and 3. We could see what the differences between those are. And then there is a single dual motor button right here too. So we can run just the rear motor or both. So what I'm gonna do for the dyno runs is just run the rear motor. I did a quick little test outside just to feel it out, and it absolutely feels like double the power when you turn the second motor on. So I think if we do one motor, basically double the wattage and torque figures, that's gonna give us a pretty good ballpark of what this thing actually does. And coincidentally, it literally just finished charging about 2 seconds ago. That was nice timing. So let's get started. Probably should have checked to make sure this was in the rear motor mode before I strapped it down, but I didn't. I do wish there was something on the little screen here to show you if it was actually in Eco Turbo or single dual. You just have a latching push button and there's nothing to indicate which one you're actually in. Okay, that's just the rear motor. Good. I am in gear 1 if that makes any difference with anything. My speedometer on the scooter is reading 23 miles an hour, and over there we're getting 22 miles an hour. So sometimes 24. A little bit fast, just by a hair. I would say less than a 10% difference between the actual speed and what we're getting, which is not insignificant if you get up to 50 miles an hour. That means we could be off by 5 miles an hour. So at just an estimate, if we actually hit 60 on this, real speed's gonna be about 55. Level 1, it's saying 1,100 watts of power. All right, this says gear 2. It does do something. Absolutely. 2,000 watts and 43 pound-feet of torque. So those first numbers I gave you, 26 pound-feet of torque. And then mode 2 bumps us close to 2,000 watts, a little under, and 43 pound-feet. Okay, so 3. still accelerating. So interestingly, mode 3 didn't actually add any wattage or power, but at the point where the mode 2 started to taper off on speed, 3 just kept going faster and faster and faster. So 1 limits power, so 2 unlocks more power but limits the speed. 3 doesn't limit the speed at all. So eco mode gives us a nice tame, under 250 watts, 10 pound-feet of torque. So those numbers were very consistent. I got 1.92 kilowatts on one run, 1.93 kilowatts on the second run. So we're running just over 1900 watts on the rear wheel. I got 43 pound-feet of torque and change on both runs. So I think we can safely double those numbers, which is gonna be about 3,800 watts, 86 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot. Well, I guess really 87 pound-feet. Now I do have more scooter reviews coming, so I have added an entirely new section of scooters to the dyno board, in addition to e-bikes that are stock, aftermarket parts on e-bikes, electric skateboards, and electric motorcycles. But since this is the first one, to the top of the list it goes. This speedometer can reach unloaded about 63 miles an hour was the most I saw on it, just spinning up with the wheel in the air. That means it's realistically not going to read 60 miles an hour on the road, and also means it's not gonna go 60 miles an hour because the speed limit is off by like 8–9% or so. I do think it's possible this thing could max out close to 50 miles an hour, which is still scary. So I guess, yeah, let's go do that now. I am absolutely wearing a motorcycle helmet and gloves today because I feel like the odds of me crashing this thing are higher than most of the bikes I ride. Not necessarily because this thing's unsafe or anything, but the wheels are tiny and I'm not really a very experienced scooter rider. So this is turbo mode, but just one motor. Woo! 30 miles an hour, and I didn't gun it right off the bat. All right, so let's give it full power now. Really gotta squat down on this thing. 3, 2, 1. This is full power, one motor. 10 miles an hour. 20. And 30. That's 35. And I'm feeling that speed wobble again. It's possible it's my camera attached to the front, but I'm hoping that if I switch over to dual motors now, the front wheel actually pulling the bike along is gonna maybe eliminate the speed wobble thing I'm feeling. Oh man, the torque difference between 1 and 2 is just like, one motor is, I feel like, pretty manageable, and 2 just lurches. Whew. It actually lifts the front wheel off the ground, and then the front wheel just starts spinning and screeching, so it feels scary. Oh man, the acceleration is so much faster. I'm already up to 40. Oh man. This thing is quick, very quick. I don't have anybody else out here riding with me today, but if you want to see me take a bunch of my other electric things that I have and do a drag race, leave me a comment because I think this one should be in that race. This thing moves. It's genuinely hard. I know I'll get more used to it, but it's hard to give it full throttle without the tires spinning. Come on, traction! It is so fast, it's scary. All right, well, before I get brave enough to try top speed, let's do both motors in turbo on some gravel. This thing is full suspension. Whoa. your speed is only limited by your skill off-road. Suspension feels great though. I mean, compared to other scooters I've ridden, you get on the gravel and it's like just, and then it smooths out on the road. These, the tire, the suspension, seems like it soaks everything up, at least as well as whatever this wheel size could possibly do. I mean, the wheels are tiny compared to a bicycle, but it does pretty good. I am gonna switch it back to a single motor, just so I can kind of feel out the handling of it. I mean, so far, I was a little worried by the way it looks, but it actually feels pretty solid. Just make sure you tighten like the handlebars and everything up when you get it. Snug up all the nuts and bolts and everything, and this quick release clamp on the bars, make sure that's nice and tight. All right, I'm gonna turn this thing into eco mode. Single motor, but level 3. This feels like, well, it feels slow now. I would say anybody could ride this thing in eco mode. If you're brand new to a scooter, put this thing in eco, one motor, and you can cruise around comfortably. We're doing like 12 miles an hour. And this battery is huge. This is a 60 volt, 33 amp hour. That's about 2 kilowatt hours. You could ride this thing around like all day, like 50, 60, 70 miles. I guess I'll put the official rating that they give it up on screen here. You could go a long ways on this thing, especially with the power turned down. So eco mode is totally usable, but now that I'm starting to get used to it, not that much fun. This is an uphill and this thing is just accelerating. Even on just one motor, this thing scoots. I want to see how it goes up a nice steep hill with one motor. We're still doing 30 miles an hour. All right, so we slowed down to like mid-20s on one motor, going up a hill, faster than most e-bikes. These are the DIY island brakes that I have seen on a lot of electric bikes. So they're pretty stout hydraulics, and they stop these little wheels on a dime if you want it to. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like I could lock the tires up and do a stoppie on this thing if I was cool enough to do that. All right, so I want to check out the steep hill one motor. So this is more than a 10% grade. We're doing 30 miles an hour. I am accounting for the speedometer being off a little, so we're doing a realistic 30. And slowed us down to about 20 miles an hour up that hill. But we have twice that much power available. So I guess we better do that again. I'm not gonna give it any runway at all. I'm gonna go right, holy cow, to the bottom of this hill and just see if this will accelerate up and over, because I think it will. Traction. Yep. 100%. It was accelerating all the way up. I only let off because there was a car coming the other way. So I said this thing terrified me. It terrifies me a little bit less now, but just so you know how fast this thing is, I'm doing like 20 miles an hour right now, right? If I pin the throttle, the front wheel still spins. Holy cow. It's got so much torque that even if you try and go from 20, you start getting some tire slip. Oh, there's the open road. I'm begging for a top speed run. Should I do it? got it. I did it. What is the official top speed according to me? I'm gonna say 50 miles an hour. So it said 53 miles an hour quite consistently on the display. But like I said, there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. 60, completely out of the question. Never gonna get there. On a downhill maybe, I would definitely not want to try it. 50 on this thing was fast enough for me. If you want an electric bike, which would be totally illegal, that goes 50 miles an hour, you'd have to spend quite a lot of money. They have this on sale right now for $15.99. You can go 50 miles an hour on something that costs $1,600. Now I'll let you decide or think about that as far as, is that a good idea? Because look how small these wheels are. They are spinning so incredibly fast. Here are those brakes I was talking about from DIY Island. They actually feel really good despite the fact that these rotors look absolutely tiny. I'm actually pretty impressed at how well those were working. But yeah, this thing is just nuts. One motor on turbo, this thing is pretty fun. You turn it to dual motors and it's just a rocket ship off the line. It accelerates so fast that it really is just a matter of getting traction. Most of the time I was riding this thing up and down the road. I was not gunning it and giving it full throttle to get up to speed because that front wheel just kept slipping. I could not keep that thing firmly planted on the ground. Even from like 20, 25 miles an hour, it still wants to spin. It might spin at 30 miles an hour, to be honest. I just wasn't brave enough to try it. So suspension-wise, we have a monoshock in the rear. I don't see any sort of adjustment on there. It feels pretty stout. It felt really smooth. Zero complaints. I guess if you're gonna do a ton of off-road, maybe you'd wanna upgrade that with something, but from what I just did on both gravel and the road, it worked great. And this shock in the front is just massive. This thing is so beefy. It kind of looks ridiculous to have this like triple tree style fork with this tiny little wheel on it, but it's working great. So I guess I have no complaints about the suspension. It seems overbuilt, if anything, which is exactly what I would like to see on something that goes this fast. I don't think I can even recommend anybody actually take this thing 50 miles an hour on a regular basis, just because it seems dangerous, but it'll do it. There's your proof that this thing is a 60-volt battery, even after some runs up and down the road. The dyno test, we're sitting at 64 volts right now. So here's the buttons I was talking about. I do wish it was a little easier to tell where the button was, because you have eco and turbo, and the button does stick out ever so slightly. So that's eco when it's in, turbo when it's out. So you've got a little tiny display. There's the gear setting I was talking about. You have a 1, 2, and a 3. It does make a little bit of a difference. You've got your speed reading right there, and then your odometer. So I've got 10 miles on it so far, and not showing any drain on the battery at all, which is really no surprise because, like I said, the battery's huge. I probably got another 40, 50 miles to go on this thing. If you're used to e-bike throttles, you probably haven't seen one of these. This is much more common on scooters. It's just a trigger right here, so you can have 1 or 2 fingers on the trigger there. This does have standard brake cutoffs like any e-bike and most scooters, so if you pull the brakes, it's cutting power to the motors. It's got a horn that's actually pretty loud. If we flip this switch to on, we get some lights, and man, is this thing outfit with lights. You've got this ring of red like LEDs around 2 massive white LED bulbs. So it looks like this thing could really light up the road, which is awesome. You can see it has these big red LEDs in the back that are functional brake lights. We've got some cool motorcycle style turn signals. No signals on the front, they're only on the back. And if that's not enough visibility for your night riding, the sides of this thing are lit up as well. You have these LED strips, there's one on each side, that flash between various colors. So this thing is actually pretty well lit up. And all those things are nice. I can't stop thinking about how fast this thing is. It's ridiculous. And you know, now that I've ridden it a little bit, there's one more thing I want to try. When people come into my shop and ask if we carry scooters in addition to our electric bikes, I can't answer that without first asking another question to them, which is, do you mean a stand-up scooter or a sit-down scooter? Well, look, it can be both. This one actually comes with a seat you can bolt down on the floor, and the seat has even more suspension. The seat is like one of the softest, most cushiony, springy seats I've ever sat on, which is a little unnerving because it almost like moves around a little bit underneath you, but it is comfortable. So yeah, now I can be seated down here, nice and low, and zip off. That's still not full power. I'm still scared of this thing. Woo. So do you want to go really fast for not a lot of money? Get the T88 Plus. If you want to stay at home and be safe, become a coin collector or something.